This meeting is being recorded.
Hi everyone, I'm Walter from Ride the World Motorcycle Tours, and I'm super excited to be here for this webinar. I'm joined by my business partners, Nick and David, and we will be talking to you today about this fantastic tour that we have put together that will take us from New Orleans in Louisiana all the way up to Sturgis Bike Week in South Dakota. But before we go any further, I just want to take you through and just let you know a little bit about who we are. As I said, my name is Walter, and I teamed up with David a few years ago now. David has been operating a business called Ride the World Australia here in Sydney, and been taking tourists and showing them around Sydney for quite a few years, and also to around the areas around Sydney. He is the past president of the Australian Institute of Tour Guides, so really knows his stuff. So if you are coming to Sydney, certainly look us up and David will be able to show you around. We sat down together and we had a vision of creating something that would take people beyond just the riding experiences. So we came up with Ride the World Motorcycle Tours and experiences beyond the ride is our tagline. We are very excited that we have Nick, who was able to join the team as well. Nick's experience in tour leading in the US is second to none. And we're very privileged to be able to have him here with us today to be able to talk through some of his personal experiences and insights into the tour that we have. We currently operate tours in the US, Europe, Vietnam, South Africa, and Australia that you can see on the screen there. We do have different layers in what we offer as far as our motorcycle experiences go. We have on a base level just a straight motorcycle rental. So if you're traveling somewhere in the world and you pretty much know your way around, know what you would like to do, just need the motorcycle rental done, then come and have a chat to us and we'll sort that out for you. Then we have our self-guided tours, which have been put together by some of our local suppliers. And again, just pick up the bike and follow their routes for an enjoyable experience. We also have some of our suppliers' scheduled departures, which means that these are already pre-programmed, ready to go itineraries that you won't necessarily be on these tours with fellow Australians or New Zealanders. You'll have people from around the world, so that just adds a little extra element to it. And then we have created what we have called our self-ride tours. Now, these are tours at the moment just in the US, but we'll be expanding further on, that Nick, David, and myself have crafted from all of our years of experience working in and around the US to create a tour for you that you can pick up a bike, follow our directions, and it has been designed for Australians and New Zealanders to get off the beaten track, enjoy the ride experiences, but also make sure you have all those experiences beyond the ride. Now, a couple of these that we have for 2023, we are looking to include as part of our Elite Series in 2024. And speaking of our Elite Series, this is what we're talking about today. Our tour from New Orleans all the way up to Sturgis is part of our Elite Series. These are tours that we handcraft ourselves. We escort the tours personally, and we stay in the best locations, sometimes the most quirkiest because they're the most interesting in that particular location, but it is more for the discerning motorcyclist. Maximum of 14 riders in a group, and then we also have our seat and van option for non-riders, and I'll explain about that in just a moment. But just to give you a quick overview, a couple of our self-ride tours that we have crafted for this year. We have two in what's called the Great American West, which is northern US, so taking in the states of North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. And we have put together these, if you don't know that area, amazing roads to ride, but there is so much history there that very few Australians and New Zealanders really know much about. But once you get there and experience it, you'll come home and just blow people's minds with your experiences. Then, of course, there is Las Vegas, one of my favorite places in the world. And we have been able to put together some tours there for you, either coming down, spending 2 days on Route 66, or going around through the canyons and back to Las Vegas. So have a look on our website for those. Tonight, of course, it's all about our Elite Series, New Orleans to Sturgis, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And then we also have our Ultimate Nevada road trip, and I'll explain at the end. We've got a webinar coming up on that as well. Just a couple of examples of the motorcycles that we have on offer for our tour that we'll be talking about today. So this is not an exhaustive list, it's just to give you an idea of the machines that you can hire and can ride. Now, I did mention about the fact that we have our seat and van option, and this has really been designed for those partners or friends who would like to join us on these trips, but don't want to spend 2 or 3 weeks sitting on the back of a motorcycle. They don't mind it for an afternoon or for a day or 2 days, but to spend a couple of weeks on there is a bit arduous. So what we offer is for them to be able to hop into the van and join us, still be on the same tour, still stay at the same places, same hotels, have the same inclusions, but be able to actually step off the bike. Also gives us as riders a little bit more freedom when we don't have somebody on the back of the bike, and to be able to enjoy the experience as well. So have a look, have a chat to your friends and family. We also have had, interestingly enough, a number of requests for this because the tours themselves on our Elite Series are so unique in their concept and design that we've had people inquiring as to coming across. They have no interest in motorcycles. They just want to come and join the tour. They are also welcome to come in on our seat and van option as well. But today we are heading off to Sturgis, starting from New Orleans. So in a moment, I will hand it over to Nick to take you through. We'll be starting from New Orleans and Louisiana down in the south and making our way all the way up north. That will take us 21 days. And we start off in the fantastic city of New Orleans. So I will hand it over to Nick to take it from here.
Thank you, Walter. Okay, New Orleans. So day one, we arrive at New Orleans. Terrific place. The hotel is located in the French Quarter, which is very close to Bourbon Street, which is the street that everybody knows. There's a picture on the screen of Bourbon Street. Now, this is Bourbon Street probably on a Sunday at about 8 a.m. There's nobody there. But Bourbon Street, there's usually chock-a-block full of people, revelers. There's so many bars and nightclubs, littered all the way through. There's people up in those balconies leaning over, enjoying the evening and the music, etc. So Bourbon Street, very excellent place to actually visit. And yeah, we'll be looking into all of these places. Now, whilst we're in the French Quarter of New Orleans, you need to track down a coffee shop and go sit down for a beignet, which is a cross between a croissant, a scone, and a muffin, I guess. But just an experience. You're in New Orleans. You're in the French Quarter. These are the things that you do when you're visiting New Orleans. There are plenty of things to see and do. There's a lot of history around New Orleans. There's also, options if we do have time and you have the inclination. You can actually jump on an airboat and go see the gators, which are in the wetlands all around New Orleans. That's an option if you choose to do that. But okay. Moving right along, that was day one. Day two, we actually collect our motorcycles and we trek out to, where are we going? To Vicksburg. Okay, Vicksburg is, well, before we get to Vicksburg, we're going to cross over a bridge going over Lake Pontchartrain, which is possibly the biggest road bridge that you have ever seen, as in the longest road bridge that you have ever seen. This thing, once you get on it, you think, okay, well, 10 minutes, I'll be over it. No, think again. You're there for a friggin' hour or more. This bridge is somewhere between, I don't know, 10 and 50 kilometers. I didn't count, but I just thought I'm getting old on this bridge. But it is an amazing sight. Either side of the bridge, you're traveling over the wetlands, over the bayous. There you'll see shacks on the side built on stilts where people are, fishing for crawdads where the crawdads sing. You'll see all this happening whilst you're on the bridge. Okay, so ultimate destination for that in the evening is Vicksburg. And Vicksburg is, shall we say, steeped in history. Now, this is the Battle of Vicksburg, obviously. So you've got the north and the south. What you're looking at, the cannons, most likely the south facing north. So you had the Confederates on one side, you had the Union on the other side, and in the middle is a valley, no man's land. And don't want to disturb you, but there's so many people killed in that valley because both sides wanted to, obviously obliterate the other. There's also, as far as history is concerned, almost every state provided personnel for this particular battle, and there's a monument to all the states that provided men, for this battle. It's disturbing, but it's history. It is something that you need to see. Okay, so day
Sorry,
three.
Nick, I was just going to say, it is quite a surreal experience when you're walking around there, isn't it? It's just, yeah.
And there is significance in all the monuments. I'm hoping we take a guide through there, because there is always a significance in the number of steps, the number of statues, what the statues signify. There is significance in everything there. And there's about 20 different monuments which relate back to history, from the various states. And like I said, everything is not coincidental. It's engineered that way. This is an amazing place. Okay, day three. Vicksburg. We go from Vicksburg to Tupelo through the Natchez Trace Parkway, which, as you can see, is a terrific riding road with excellent scenery. So, I mean, everybody talks about the Natchez Trace, so we'll be on it. We'll be riding it. Sorry?
I've heard that the rangers are really strict on it as well. It's 35 miles an hour, and you sit at 35 miles an hour.
Possibly, yeah, yep. And you can't see them because they're hiding behind a blade of grass. They'll just bounce out at you, of course. Now, we're heading to a town called Tupelo. For those Elvis fans, yep, it's Tupelo. It's the birthplace of Elvis Presley. We will see the little house, or shall I call it a shack? It's a 2-room house. So there was... you've got to see it. There's a swing on the porch, and it's parked right next to a church, and they provide little narrative of the whole history of the place. Now, trivia question: how many of you knew that Elvis was a twin? Well, come on this tour and follow us, and I'll show you how Tupelo actually proves it. So anyway, Tupelo. After Tupelo, we're heading into Memphis, Tennessee. So for those of you that have, we were talking about Elvis. Okay. The image on the screen is the Elvis Museum, which is right next to Gracelands. We have to go. That's it. We got to go there. We'll probably spend, 3 hours until you've had enough Elvis, but wait for it. There's more Elvis. There's also Sun Records, where Elvis made his, it was his big break into music. Long story. If it wasn't for the receptionist of the owner of Sun Studios, which his name is Phillips, like mine. Okay. Phillips didn't like Elvis. Oh, shit. How'd that go? Oh, my phone went off. What the hell? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. But, Elvis. Phillips didn't particularly like Elvis. He wanted to capture black blues, the black sound. But his secretary kind of liked this young, lanky Elvis Presley. So she got him in twice in front of Phillips until finally he heard the one song. He actually, he didn't hear, Elvis was singing conventional music. But It's All Right Mama was the tune that actually flipped him, because he said, yep, that's the kind of black blues music that I want, and it's coming from this guy. So he recorded it. It played on the radio that evening, and the phones lit up. Everybody wanted to hear it again and again. And now we have Elvis. So great place. Sun Studios is right opposite the Gibson Guitar Factory. So those of you who are into rock and roll music, you want to have a look at a Gibson Les Paul, just walk across the road, buy one. Take one home. So we're in Memphis. Next stop, we spend a couple of nights in Memphis. Then we move on to Nashville. So Nashville, of course, has its own nightlife. And you're seeing an image of the main street of Nashville. There are bars and grills along all of these, along this street, and there's so many different blues bars, all with live music. Whatever you're into, you will find it in Nashville. It is a terrific place to just soak up music, etc. Now, Nashville is, of course, also where the paddleboat or steamboat, the General Jackson, and I think, Walter, yes, we're going to have a dinner on that. The music is absolutely amazing. The artists that play, on that paddle wheel steamer are second to none. Also, from Nashville, we are only a day, we'll spend a couple of days there, so we're only a day ride away from Jack Daniels. So once again, you want to see Jack Daniels, go down, see the brewery. There's a brewery tour. Lynchburg is actually an amazing little town. It's also in a dry county, so you can't drink in Lynchburg, and yet Jack Daniels is there. You can sip, in other words, taste, but you cannot drink whilst you're in that county. Jack Daniels, and you can't buy alcohol either. Jack Daniels gets around that by offering you an ornate bottle for $30. And when you buy the ornate bottle, they fill it for free. Okay, so that gets around the rules. You wind up taking an ornate bottle of Jack Daniels home. Also in town, there's the gravesite of the legendary Jack Daniels. I'll take you there. You could actually toast to the great man.
And I'll also just mention, Nick, that for those that would like to buy a couple of ornate bottles to take back, our support vehicle will be going down there on the day.
Yep.
So you don't have to try to figure out what you can put in your carry back on your bike. And
also the non-riders would dearly love to visit Lynchburg. The town only has one set of lights. One. When they installed the set of lights, people drove 100 miles from the surrounding areas just to see what a set of lights looked like. And it's hanging from 4 wires across to the middle of the intersection. So it's only one of those light things that just hang in the middle of the road. Quite an amazing place. Steeped in all the history. It's amazing. Okay, so from Nashville, lots to do in Nashville, by the way. I shall hand you over to David, because we then take off going to St. Louis. So come in, David.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks for that. We're up to day 8, believe it or not. It's been travelling along quite well. Had a few days off. As Nick said, we want to have a look around. We're not. Our call is that we go to have experiences beyond the ride, and that's what this is all about. So when we get heading in towards St. Louis, we go to the famous chain of rock bridge. Have a look at that. It spans the Mississippi River, and it was the way that the old timers used to go along Route 66. We've got a more modern bridge to cross into St. Louis now. Whilst on the way there, we'll go to Parker's Drive-In, which is a 50s drive-in, a lot of fun. We'll also go and see the world's largest bottle. I would have said ketchup, but it's not spelt that way. And it was put there in 1949. Unfortunately, the company that produced the cat's nip is no longer with us. It was the Brooks Tomato Products Company. Okay, so we've gone to the bridge. We've had a look at that. It's got a 22-degree bend in the middle of it all. Really strange as Americans. They seem to build by foot, not by getting the quickest way, point A to B. We're carrying along, and then we arrive at St. Louis. You saw the slide a moment ago where we had the arch. You can go up in the arch, have a look around, see what it's all about. We've got a day there, so we're not going to be rushing around. It's also a good break getting ready because tomorrow we will be traveling a fair way on day 10 when we're going to get our kicks on Route 66. This gives us that next American experience. We've done our Civil War, we've done our rock and roll, we've done our blues, and now we're going to see the Mother Road. We'll travel through the countryside and the suburbs following the route, and we'll come to a place called Cuba. And it's famous for the mural city, and it's got 14 murals. Fantastic. Nowhere else in the world has these sort of murals. We'll also follow the road a bit further, and we'll come to the world's second largest rocker, as in a rocking chair. It was the largest, but someone decided they wanted to outdo the man. And so in 2015, the largest rocker became the Route 66 Red Rocker, because he didn't want to admit he was running second best. After that, we'll go to the Devil's Elbow Bridge, which is what we're looking at. This, again, is one of the classic road bridges of Route 66. Another bend in it for some unknown reason, other than the construction companies of the Americans, got a dog leg. And similar in ways to the original Chain of Rocks bridge that we saw before we got into St. Louis. We're going to go to Taco's and Wing Company in St. Robert. It's claimed to be the best for wings and taco. So when we're there, you can judge it and let us know what you really, really think. We end up at the Route 66 Museum in Lebanon, and the town contains a museum, reconstructed indoor gas station complete with vintage gas pumps. That's as in petrol, folks. We are in America. From there, we'll ride to our overnight accommodation in Springfield. This is one of the 34 Springfields in the United States. We won't be seeing the Simpsons. It's a different Springfield. From Springfield, we're off to Kansas City. Mainly a ride day through the prairies, and we'll be going to Fort Scott. It's been there since 1840, and it focuses on the role of the U.S. Army in the frontier wars. This were the ones against the North American Indians, and a little different to our ones we'd seen earlier with the Civil War around Vicksburg.
Yeah, I was going to say, David, this is quite an interesting place because, as you said previously, we were in the Civil War, and when we come to Fort Scott, we're going back, quite a bit of time before that, and it's just quite fascinating to see how it all was, particularly around the prairie areas. Sorry.
Yeah, this tour is really good, Walter, in that you get to experience so much of what America has to offer. You're not stuck in a single rut and you're going from one place to another. As we travel, you get to experience all these aspects that make America what it is.
Absolutely.
So we're at Kansas City. We're going to go to a famous one. Of course, Nick's here. We'll stay at the Phillips Hotel. It's all about Phillips. Goodness knows why, but we're going to go there. Kansas City, we've got another 3 day because we're going to have a look around. You're going to get a bit confused. Kansas City is in Kansas and it's in Missouri. One city with a river between, state line between them. Fantastic place. We'll take you around, show you what the city has to offer. From Kansas City, Missouri, we're going to stay in Missouri and go to Lincoln, and that's what we're seeing a picture of now. This is the Museum of American Speed and was founded in 1992 by Speedy Bill and Joyce Smith, the Speedway Motors Museum of American Speed. They've put together the racing history. You don't get to see the cars from the normal streets. You're actually going to see what the Americans were about when they were doing their speed history. And then that night, we're going to be stopping in Nebraska for our overnight at the Hampton Inn and Suites. The next day, we're getting close to Sturgis, but we haven't quite made it yet. We're going to go and have a look at the Stir Museum of the Prairie Pioneers. Fascinating museum, little known by anyone outside of this region. It covers those pioneer times when the Americans were settling it, were going through the region up until about the late 19th century. It's a huge place to cover. And after there, we'll be going through a town called Broken Bow, which was a former Indian campground. From there, we're going up to Valentine for our last night in Nebraska. And here we'll be welcome to the middle of nowhere. And then from there, we're going to the middle of somewhere, and I'm going to pass you on to Nick.
Thank you, David. I'm back. Okay. From Nebraska, we cross over past Wounded Knee, of course, where the Lakota people were, well, pounced upon by the Americans and decimated. Another story. But we're into Rapid City. Now, from Rapid City, our hotel is located not too far away from the I-90, which is the main route into Sturgis. We're about 30 miles, so about, say, 45 minutes of casual riding or driving, and you're into Sturgis itself. But Rapid City and Sturgis, you have to see to believe. That's Main Street, Sturgis. Little town with about, I'd say, about 15 to 30,000 people normally. And about 1.5 million bikers decide to pounce on them in early August and, well, make their lives extremely interesting and fun. For those who haven't been, it's not usually, we don't usually see any violence and angst. It's very peaceful. So even for the travelers that come with us in the van, I would encourage them to also go and soak up some of this biker goodness and actually find out that we're not so bad after all.
The police are interesting too, Nick. Like,
yes,
police presence, but they're not dressed up in uniforms. That they wear polo shirts, and it says, and the size of them, they're like man mountains. You go, oh my god! And he turns around, got Sturgis police on their back. You go, I got it. Yes,
and all their bikes are actually custom painted, airbrushed with motifs of Sturgis and the surrounding Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse sort of motifs on airbrushed onto their tanks. Their bikes also have the latest of LED lights, so they're quite flashy. These are not your normal cops. They're very friendly, and they're only too open for you to ask them, look, can you pose for a photo for us? And they gladly do all of that. Very, very good cops. But if there is an issue, man, do they pounce on it and just quell it straight away, which I've seen. But, okay, things to see around Sturgis. So you're at the hotel. There's a lot of riding. Okay, so the image on the screen is somewhere near Needles, the Needles Highway. It takes you through Custer. There's a bunch of tunnels, which are one car going one way through the tunnel. Like you can't, they're very small tunnels. And one of those tunnels on the Needles Highway actually frames perfectly Mount Rushmore. So as you're going through, have your camera ready, because when you see light at the end of the tunnel, you will see Mount Rushmore perfectly framed in that opening. So you can click a shot of it. So Mount Rushmore, you've got that. You've also got, and the history behind Borglum, who actually made Mount Rushmore. You also have Crazy Horse. Behind David, Crazy Horse. Now they've completed a lot more of Crazy Horse since that image. So yeah, it's progressing. You will also soak up all the history of Crazy Horse and the Lakota Indian people. There is a presentation in there, like a 15-minute movie in a movie theater that's inside the museum there, Crazy Horse. well worth a watch, because it gives you the full story, the story that you don't necessarily always hear or know. So quite a moving experience to know what it's all about in Crazy Horse, and how what's his name, Wazinski, who also worked on Mount Rushmore. He was one of the people that helped carve it with Borglum. He also is he spent his life carving Crazy Horse. Now he's left it to his family and descendants to continue his legacy. His wife is still alive. She is there. You will most likely see her, at the monument. He is also buried not too far away from Crazy Horse itself, overlooking the monument. Okay, so you've got Crazy Horse. You've got Deadwood, Wild Bill Hickok. You've got Mount Moriah, where he's buried. You've got
Keystone.
Sorry?
Keystone?
Yes.
Keystone's there as well.
Keystone is near Mount Rushmore. You've got Deadwood, Calamity Jane. Who knows what Calamity Jane looks like? I can show you. There's photos of her. She's buried next to Wild Bill as well in Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah is also the place where the flag never sets, or never gets taken down.
Yeah.
The first American flag that was allowed to fly 24/7. Apart from that, okay, you've got Spearfish Canyon, wonderful riding area. You've got Bridal Veil Falls. So from Deadwood, you go through Spearfish, Bridal Veil Falls, have lunch over there, scoot back past Sturgis. There's also Devil's Tower, which is a good ride on the I-90 to get to Devil's Tower. Have a look at that. Reminisce. What is the movie, David?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes.
Do.
Thank you. I needed that.
I look like Dreyfus. That's why I know it.
So Nick, you said at the start when we came into Sturgis that in the previous tours that you've taken, there wasn't enough time to do anything. So we've extended our time there, because when we have a look at the itinerary, it can seem like it's a long time in one place, seeing as though we've ridden all the way from New Orleans up to Sturgis. We've got the 5 nights in Sturgis. But it sounds like even then would be stretched to cover everything that we want to see over that place, plus take in the actual Sturgis Rally itself.
Yeah, you've got everything in Sturgis itself, but I'll just skirt around the outlines a little bit. We've also got the Badlands. You've got Custer National Park. So Badlands and Custer National Park, great place to ride or drive through and hunt down those elusive bison. There are buffalo all around the place, but as they do, the herds move from place to place. So every time you go there, they're somewhere else. Best thing to do is ask a ranger, past a ranger station, and say, hey, where are they today? Follow the instructions. You'll find herds of bison, which are amazing to see. So on the way to the Badlands, you've got Ellsworth Air Force Base. That's an Air Force base that houses the B-52 for those who are aeronautically inclined, and also the B-1 Lancer bomber. They're the nuclear arsenal, part of the nuclear strike of the American Air Force. There is a missile silo there, and for $10, there is a tour going down, so you can actually go see a Minuteman missile inside its silo. It's inert, so it won't go up, but I don't know whether they're still allowing travelers to go there. When I went past there, I think it was 2015 or 2016, you had to show your passport in order to gain access to the missile silo. So you've got that. Now, Sturgis. Inside Sturgis, Main Street, you've got probably 7 or 8 or more bars. There used to be 7. I think it's up to about 10. You've got One-Eyed Jacks. You've got the Knuckle Bar. You've got the Side Hack Saloon. You've got the Broken Spoke. You've got the Dungeon Bar. there's so many just scattered all around the place. It's well worth just a walking tour just to go grab a drink at each one of them. And yeah, you won't be riding home after that.
Nick,
Yes.
when we're there, there's a very famous bar called the Full Throttle. Where's
Yes.
that? Where's that in relation?
Throttle is about 15 clicks outside of Sturgis. It burnt down. It was right next to the Buffalo Chip campground, but that burnt down. So they moved it another, say, 5 miles or 10 kilometers to the left, which is east of Buffalo Chip.
Okay.
It's easy to find, but it's just a way away. I would recommend people going there, either go there during the day or at night. It is quite wild, but I do recommend people go just. Excuse me.
That's him again.
Yeah, I put it on silent and he's trying to get me again.
He's
So,
too popular.
okay, so Buffalo Chip is well worth seeing. That Buffalo Chip is where you will find a lot of the big name bands will play. In past years, we've had everything from Leonard Skinner, ZZ Top, big name bands playing there at Buffalo Chip. So you've got that. That's on the way to getting to the Full Throttle bar. So yeah, a lot of things to see and do. There's if you want to cuddle a bear cub, there's a little park that's just slightly south of Rapid City that does that. You've got glowworm caves. You've got bars all over the place. Every highway you will see a bunch of bikers parked in front of a biker bar, and things to see, things to eat, just experiences in general. Yeah. Even though we give you 5 days, like Walter said, you may still run out of time to do everything. But if you pace, if you plot out exactly and follow us.
Well, we'll be taking everybody around for a lot of the excursions and having a lot of recommendations anyway. But there are obviously those that'll be joining us that'll be a bit more free and independent once they get to Sturgis and would like to do things a bit more independently. We'll be running shuttles backwards and forwards from our hotel through to the Sturgis Rally in the afternoons, evenings, early mornings, I dare say, and also to places like Buffalo Chip and
Full Throttle.
Full Throttle, thank you, and back again, so that you can leave the bikes at the hotel and you can go and explore these areas. We're riding through the day, of course. It'll just be a tremendous experience. There is so much to see and do that obviously we're just scratching the surface of what we're talking about here in explaining the itinerary all the way from New Orleans. And then, of course, once we get up to the rally, when you've got more than 1 million people descending on a small town, and so many of them are arriving by, the majority of them arriving by bike, my goodness, that's just a whole different world. If you are not a motorcyclist, you will absolutely be blown away by just walking around, even for one of those first days, and just checking out all the sights and sounds. As interesting as the bikes are, I dare say, Nick and David, that the people are equally as interesting as we see all the different guises of people who ride motorcycles. Now we'll just move on.
Can I just say one thing, Walter?
Yeah.
What I think's important is that people go, oh, we're talking about being at Sturgis, but we're staying at Rapid City. Where Nick was talking about, all these places are an easy ride. Rapid City is such a great place to be because you can go into the action and you're not stuck in the middle of it. Like, we come back out and those rides we do, we're not fighting our way through traffic in Sturgis to try and get out to Deadwood. We can get to the Custer National Park from the other side. I think this is a personal thing, and that's why I've pushed everyone for heading into Rapid City. It's a great base to work from when you're going to the Sturgis Rally.
Yeah, good point, David. As much as I love being in the middle of the hustle and bustle, when you leave, you want to leave and have that quiet night, because the next day is a big day again. So yeah, no, good pickup. So what does this all mean? Well, basically, we have our departure from New Orleans on the 24th of July, And I'd just like to point out that we do have some pre-night packages in New Orleans. It's one of my favorite cities in the US. I know this place inside out. There's so much to see and do that if you do want to join us for the first few days before the tour starts, then let us know about that as well. You can see that we've got so much included. And also when we're talking about starting off on that first day out, we'll be picking up our bikes. You can see the pricing there. Now that does include the one-way motorcycle rental fee that we get slugged with picking up our bikes in New Orleans and dropping them off in Sturgis. Sorry about that, just had people arrive and the dog is barking. So we've got also unfortunately, we do have a supplement fee that's added in the Sturgis, for the Sturgis Rally when it comes to picking up the motorcycles. So that does push up the price a little bit. However, having said that, when we look at what's included in that price is all of your accommodation, and we are staying in some of the best places in town. We are staying in the heart of town, in New Orleans, in Memphis, in Nashville, in St. Louis, in Kansas City, and we are including a whole host of things in there, as well as, of course, you get Nick, David, and myself coming along to make sure that your every need is taken care of. And I will just stress again that we do have that seat and van option for those who are non-motorcyclists or who are partners of motorcyclists that would like to come on this amazing trip. And it is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience coming all the way from New Orleans. Let us know, have a chat to us. As I said, this is one of my favorite cities in the world. When we are on Bourbon Street, the first shot that we had that Nick pointed out right at the start was a very quiet Sunday morning. When we do hit New Orleans, and particularly if you're coming for us on those pre-days before the tour starts, there'll be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement that can only be experienced in New Orleans. We do have a couple of other webinars. We did one last night on Route 66, which is David's birthday, right, actually, for his seeing out his 66th birthday. Last year, David and I rode a portion of Route 66 on the day that he turned 66. This year, going back, and as he celebrates his last day of being 66, we'll be on Route 66 again. And next Monday, on the 6th of March, we will be having a webinar on the ultimate Nevada road trip. Now, this is one that you don't want to miss as well. It is just the most incredible experience traveling around the state of Nevada. And it is so completely different to the city of Las Vegas, which we will start and end with. So on that happy note, thanks, Nick. Thanks, David, for another enlightening session. This webinar has gone on a bit longer than I would have expected, but there's just so much to take in, so much to see and experience. And even after an hour on this webinar, it's still really only just scratching the surface of what we'll be looking at and experiencing. So thanks, David. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Walter. Thanks, Nick.
No problem.